video on. Okay. Hey, Sean, we just obviously just heard from Brandon. Just from your perspective, how important is it to maintain the relationship and what you guys have built here? The fact that his contract mirrors yours and you guys can continue what you've started here.
Yeah, I think it's huge, Heather, for the obvious reason of continuity, number one. There's things that you do when you come into these jobs, especially when it's your first time going through it, that you learn, that you grow through, and these shared experiences that we've been able to share, not only he and I together, but also with Terry and Kim, and I just think you get stronger through these experiences, and so we hope we get better because of it, and it's great when Terry and Kim show that they trust us and that they're committed to winning and want to continue down the path that we're on.
I asked Brandon about your relationship and kind of a similar question about stability and, continuing what the two of you have built here. And he mentioned how you guys can have conversations about maybe starting a younger player or, seeing what someone has, putting him in the lineup, things like that. Can you kind of, shed some light on those conversations and the dialogue and the back and forth between the two of you when it comes to conversations like that, and maybe kind of testing what certain young guys have and things like that?
Yeah, there's a lot of similarities and overlap between GMs and head coach. I think that in this case, in particular, playing a young person, most coaches typically don't want to play young players because of a lack of experience and the run up that has to happen to get them to play at a winning level. And I would say most GMs probably, they get I guess judged by, hey, are you playing my guy? Are you playing the guy I drafted, the guy I brought in and paid at this level or whatever? So those are two separate worlds, and to get them to blend where there's only one agenda is part of that relationship, as he mentioned and as you're mentioning. So I think that comes through knowing who he was before we came here, and then working, continuously to work through some of that, because that's natural that happens from time to time.
Awesome. Thanks, Sean.
Sure.
Hey, Coach, I know you talk about a lot just the human element, the human side of things, and just how the character of people you have in your building helps everyone do their job to the best ability. And I was just wondering, with Brandon and his character, how you think that's been able to have him have a successful last few years since he's gotten to Buffalo, and being able to get the right guys in here and build them up how they need to be built up with you in charge.
Yeah, Brandon has a pretty good feel for people, and I think that's a gift, right? When you are able to listen to your staff, and then just kind of sit back and evaluate, and whether he's brought in players on the roster or staff that he's hired, I think it's important that you can be yourself a pretty good judge of character and who a person is and how they fit into the overall piece of our puzzle here at One Bills Drive, and so I think he's got a knack for it.
Appreciate it. Thanks.
Sure.
Good morning, Sean. John Worrell.
Morning, John.
Just could you have envisioned when you got to Carolina that you and I'm not sure what your first impressions were of Brandon when you met him, but could you have envisioned that now you two will are potentially tied together, and hopefully tied together through a long term, maybe what is it, 14 years? Could you have envisioned that back at that point?
Yeah, Terry and Kim called me and gave me the news the other day, and I said, well, I said, well, I was going to mention maybe we could trade him out for somebody else. Now I think back about that, John, to your question, and yeah, who would have known back then, that when I would walk by Brandon's office was on a way for me to go in and out of the building or to practice, to and from practice. And so myself, like many of the other coaches, would walk by Brandon's office, and he always had an inviting, open door type of atmosphere around his office. And so we had some conversations, but I also just being genuine about it, wouldn't say it was like, oh, if we ever get, because sometimes conversations happen. Well, if I ever get a job, I'm going to bring you with me. Like, we never really had those conversations. I don't really think those conversations are healthy anyway. But it was always, I thought he had a good way about him and a good feel for not only where we were as a team, but what we needed to do going forward. And so, yeah, it's pretty cool and really a blessing from God to be able to have this work out the way it's worked out.
Good. Thank you very much.
Sure.
Hi, Sean. You talk about those conversations you and Brandon have, and he mentioned, you guys don't always agree. I'm curious, as you've kind of gone through this together now for 4 years, how important you've realized that is, that you don't always agree.
Yeah, it's healthy, Matt. Like any good family, you got to be able to have those truth meetings, those truth conversations, and or at least ask about some things. Say, hey, what about this? What about that? And be okay with not agreeing, and know that it's not going to go beyond that. And taking an approach of, hey, we can both learn from this, or maybe, hey, Brandon brings up something to me that I didn't see that way, but I'm like, hey, he's got a good point. And so as hard as those meetings are on the surface, I think when given time to process through them, they've made us stronger, and I'm sure there'll be more of them moving forward.
How much did it take getting used to? Like you said, it's not like you guys were having those hard conversations in Carolina. It's a much different relationship. When you're defensive coordinator, he's an assistant GM. How have you learned to have those conversations and have that, not let it be more than just a conversation or a disagreement, and not let it turn into a thing that can, have you guys pulling in different directions?
Yeah, I think it comes down to, how we've been able to come through those hard conversations that we have had to this point, to where he knows, or I know for sure, both of us know that, hey, if we have another one, this week or next week or down the road, which is inevitable, that we've been through this before, and we all have, again, the same agenda. We both have the same agenda of winning and doing things right, and so I think if you have an open mind and you don't have an ego, that you can keep that growth mindset and try and learn from one another, because that's really what we're all about here. And it all comes back to respect too. I think that's the key for any relationship is mutual respect. And, I think that's key.
How much does, of course, there's the symbolic nature of the contracts matching up and you guys being tied together. And Brandon mentioned he wants to take this thing to another level. And I'm sure, you feel the same way, the way you're wired. How much does having the contracts help in that you're not going into next year thinking, well, gee, are we going to come back, or am I going to come back and he's not? I mean, how much does having a little bit of that security help you focus on taking this to the next level?
Yeah, it does. Because, if they were staggered in some other way, it's always, even though it's not in the front of your mind, it's somewhere in the back of your mind. And so really appreciate that commitment from Terry and Kim. And they didn't have to do any of this. And so I think the working relationship, when you can be around good people, and these kind of hard conversations are not just with Brandon and myself, but they're with Terry and Kim, or that they have with us. And so it all comes from knowing that it all comes from a good place. And again, I think, we don't have all the answers in terms of Brandon and myself. And I've learned a lot from Brandon. So he makes my job a lot easier in a lot of ways, especially during the season. And I hope in the off season, I'm able to help him when he's kind of, at the forefront of our organization with the draft and free agency and whatnot. So I think we have good give and take.
Thanks, Sean.
Sure.
Coach, good morning. Mookie Hawkins, Ruffalo Sports 1080. How you doing?
Good, Mookie. How are you?
I'm good. Now I know two people that I can go to and get a loan to, by the way. But I think that you and Brandon here for the next 5 years is pretty awesome. So coming off a big win Monday night, Coach, what's the mindset going into this week?
Yeah, really the same as it was last week. You know, we're humble enough to know that we haven't played our best game yet, but confident enough to know that we have a good team.
Absolutely. You know, speaking of that team, a guy that you drafted, Ray McLeod. Now he's playing special teams over there at Pittsburgh, and we know how dangerous he can be. You know, what are any emphasis on special teams this week, Coach?
I'm sorry, you said what?
The emphasis on special teams going in versus Pittsburgh?
Yeah, no, we're aware of Ray and the talent that he has and his ability to change a game. And so, you know, we have a lot of respect for him and a lot of respect for their team. I mean, this is a team that up till last week hadn't been beaten. And, you know, they're getting players back this week coming off COVID and off, you know, being injured. So, you know, it's going to be a good game and two good football teams. Going at it down the stretch here. So they're doing a phenomenal job and we've got a lot of respect for them.
Absolutely, Coach. Thank you for your time. Good luck this week.
Okay. All right. Thanks, guys.